came over the other night and I tried to get him to open up, but that went all the way left. He just walked out, so I don't know.
Damn, girl.
What?
No, nothing.
Say it.
Nothing. It seems like you always finding a problem. Sometimes I'm like, do you want to be happy? I'm sorry, aren't you tired? Because I'm tired for you.
All right, it's a little late, but we're going to do our Insecure review. It was a short show because I think they added 10 minutes to the first episode, and Insecure is so cheap, they took 10 minutes from the next show. But that's how editing goes. I think they wanted a more continuous story in the last episode. So, Insecure, Season 4, Episode 2, Low-Key Distant. As always, we're going to do it a different way. It's not really a recap, but we're going to do like where the characters are. And instead of, like last time, we're going to focus on the three girls. The three main girls this season, which is Issa, Molly, and Condola. Condola is actually a very, very interesting character this year because she's introducing a very, very different dynamic, especially when it comes to class and even subclasses. So we're going to start with Issa. Let's go ahead and start with Issa. That's a good place to start. Molly, we're going to save for last again because Molly is a little bit more complex, a little bit more nuanced. With Issa, Issa and the low class dude, right? Issa's the 89 and she's been dipping into the 87. She's trying to get with Condola on a business level, actually pull her back up to the 92 level, which is, that's why 89s are so odd, right? They're like a seesaw. They could actually go up or down, which makes them very interesting. Now, the way her dating pattern is down, it's gone from they've gone from Lawrence to Daniel, now down to the TSA Bay, the big dude with the fat penis, right? That's been banging her down actually to service her, which a lot of 92s do, except they do it on a higher level. So like a lot of 92s that are classy, they would actually have what they call an alpha showpiece. And the alpha showpiece would show up at the apartment. It would all be sex. It would not be about relationships. Like you notice, Issa's never seen with her TSA back. But in this segment, she's relieving stress by having sex with TSA babe. And he's doing all the monkey double back flips with her. He's got her hanging over the bed and he's pounding her. But the thing is, this time the condom gets lost. And then that's when the reality sets in. So she's got to go dig out the condom and then go to plan B. Then towards the end, she's confessing to Molly that TSA babe has 2 kids and 1 on the way. So the TSA babe is basically a step above an 85. He's basically an 85 dude with a blue collar job, with a lucky job, a hood nigga with a lucky job because he's got 2 baby mamas and a third, which is basically an 85 level. Issa Rae's basically slumming, but basically using an 85 for servicing, which is not that unusual. But the thing is, he doesn't look like an ordinary alpha showpiece, not in the least. But also, she's realizing that she's finally starting to realize that Lawrence is out of her class, right? She would love to have him back. She realizes her mistake, and she's kind of low-key upset that she doesn't have what she used to have with Lawrence. Like when her and Condola are actually walking in the beginning of the show and they're going over the venue location where they're going to have the block party. And Issa wants to schedule another get-together, another meeting. But Condola says she's going out of town. And then Issa says, what is it, for work or for fun? And she says, for fun. And then she says the Ojai Valley. And then Issa said, oh, that's romantic. And then she realized who Condola's actually going with. And that's where the tension actually is. And they relieve it by making a joke about Lawrence eating French fries with mayonnaise. And they joke and they break the tension. But even though Issa's really not good with it, but the thing is she's willing to forego it to actually keep the working relationship because she realizes that she doesn't want to lose a mentor over ex-boyfriend, which is actually very, like I said, this is actually introducing a very interesting dynamic because that is actually a mature way of actually dealing with this because I've had The more mature exes actually are good with dealing with your new girlfriends, or understanding that you will have to have a new girlfriend because they're going to have new interests. Which actually, like I said, Issa promised that this character was actually going to show growth, and this character is actually starting to show growth. A lot of growth actually comes through stress. And her growth is actually through that particular stress of actually watching the love of your life or the ex-love of your life with somebody else is actually better for them. And that takes a lot of maturity that I'm seeing that a lot of the other characters don't have. So kudos for Issa for actually showing that growth and maturity, which is, a very difficult situation. If, personally, as far as exes is concerned and them being with other people, I don't have an issue with it. I don't have an issue with the dude. And when my ex-girlfriends had exes, I didn't have an issue with the dude. As long as the dude didn't intrude on my life, for my lifestyle, I didn't have an issue with the dude. But that's probably a little too black pill for most people. But I actually commend Issa for her growth and her maturity. So let's get into Condola, because Condola is the central character in this particular episode, in this particular season. I have this funny feeling because it's not only the conflict that Issa's going to have with Condola as far as Lawrence is concerned, but also Molly is going to have a slight conflict with Condola because Condola is taking time and attention away from Molly that Molly used to get from not only Issa, but also the rest of the group. Because Condola is doing stuff for Issa that Molly never did, or Molly could never do. Well, we don't really know enough about Condola to actually know her really inner world because we haven't got a chance to actually explore it. But so far, Condola seems a much more complete and settled person than Molly or Issa. And since Condola was already married and divorced, she's already been through committed relationship and gotten out of it, which is something Issa and Molly have never really been. Issa is probably a little closer than Molly because the relationship actually lasted 5 years, even though it failed. So Issa actually has a lot more in common with Condola than she does with Molly. And I think Molly's is actually feeling the strain. So Condola is actually a very good catalyst in this season. That, Lawrence has been the catalyst for the first 2 or 3 seasons. It's always been the men that were the catalyst for friction in the relationship. But now we actually center on actually the dynamic between the women. The men have always been an excuse. If the men were better, or we find better men, or find more agreeable men, or men that were perfect for us, then our lives would be better. But in this particular season, it's really focusing on the women's inner world because Issa's looking at what her relationship should be through the eyes of Condola, because Condola is handling Lawrence differently than Issa would. And Issa's starting to learn where she went wrong with Lawrence through the things that Condola's actually doing right. A lot of things as far as her career is concerned, rather than just supporting her, that Molly really didn't do. In the avenue or the career that she wants, Molly never did that. Molly supported Issa in dysfunction because Molly was dysfunctional as far as relationship was concerned. So just like 2 alcoholics, they support each other in dysfunction. The thing is that since Condola doesn't have the same dysfunction that Molly and Issa has, Issa does want to get out of it. Issa does want to get out of it. Issa does want a healthier career, which Condola is helping her with. Want a healthier relationship, what I do believe Condola is going to help her with. And that's making Molly feel some kind of way because the normal rhetoric and bullshit that Molly would dump on Issa for support or a co-support or codependent support, she can tell Issa's not there the same way she was. There's a scene in the episode where Condola is there with Issa for a pre-lunch meeting, right? And they're sitting in the restaurant while they're waiting for Molly, and they're finishing up their business, and Condola's getting ready to leave, and Issa's telling her, no, you don't have to leave. You can stay and eat with us, and you can, she mix your shit with our shit, and we'll have all the same shit because Issa really wants Molly to bond with Condola. What he's not understanding is that Molly sees Condola as a rival because Molly knows that she's slowly getting pushed out of the picture. And Molly's starting to figure out that Condola is giving Issa something that Molly possibly never did or never could do. She's up against a better mentor for Issa instead of a codependent, which is the same thing with Issa's feet is actually looking at Condola the same way because Condola is a much more stable, compatible partner for the man that she loves. And it's a learning experience. That's how come Condola is such a central character. The next episode, we're actually going to get deeper into why Condola is probably a more compatible person for Lawrence and why Condola is natural 92 and the circle is different. Even with Tiffany. Tiffany's got two sides, right? Tiffany slums with her quartet, but also Tiffany has that other side, which is the natural 92 sides. The two sides that are hit. I almost think Tiffany's a Gemini because she has two different personalities. She expresses with two different groups. And you notice those two groups do not mix. And Condola is the introduction of the natural 92s coming down into the group that Tiffany normally would not mix with. Very interesting dynamic going forward. Condola is a very interesting dynamic introduced into this, into the quartet that we haven't seen. It's really gonna show how class plays out with women in their groups. Let's get to Molly, which is the last one. We're gonna try to keep it short. We had a short episode. I don't want this analysis to be longer than the episode. It's only like a 19-minute episode, really short. But I actually said, the images in the episode were a lot more intense, less fluff, which I think, what I think is very good. There's less fluff in this episode, even though it was short. It didn't kind of round it out. Thought there would be more, but the thing is, there was less fluffy comedy. Even though there's parts in that, like the Issa with the condom was, I don't know, that's female grossness. Okay, I'm sure it's funny for women, but dudes are like, really? Anyway, Molly has finally given in to Andrew as far as having sex. And for Molly, she bonds through sex first, which is really, it's not uninteresting, but the thing is, sexual tension and sex is how Molly really bonds. Now she's had sex with him for a month, and now she's realized that she's bonded to this guy. And now she wants to really get to know and get deeper into his persona. And with Molly's a 92 climber. 92 climbers really push. They really do. They're really aggressive. They really push because they're really seeking perfection. 92s are seeking perfection. And this is something we discussed on Kendra's show about happiness. And especially women seeking happiness. Men seek contentment. Women really seek happiness. The difference between happiness and contentment is that happiness is very fleeting and very hard to attain. And sometimes very random. But contentment is stable. It's consistent. It's achievable. It's maintainable. At any level, contentment is achievable. But 92 climbers seek happiness because that's an ideal. Happiness is an ideal. Contentment is real. Happiness is an ideal. And for 92 climbers, everything has to be perfect. Everything has a box that it has to be put in. It has to be in order. If it doesn't check a box, then they're not happy. So even though her and Andrew are having a good relationship and having a good time, and there's really no conflict, because Molly wants everything to be perfect, she's thinking up ways for things to be perfect, and that causes the conflict. Instead of letting things play out, it's rush. I've only been having sex with you for a month, so we must have a deep, closer relationships instead of letting things evolve, which is why she has so many and they're so chaotic because that stress that I have to be happy instead of it's good, like he was saying, it's good, I'm content, which is the difference between Issa and Molly. But that's also the reason why Molly's more successful, because it's the drive for happiness or the drive for perfection. But it comes at a cost. at the end of the episode, Issa says something very profound. She says, why do you always find reasons to not be happy or mess things up or not to be happy? And she asked her, aren't you tired of trying to seek perfection, or trying to seek happiness instead of being, basically, instead of being content? She said, aren't you tired? She says, because I'm tired for you. And that's one of the most realest lines I've ever heard Issa utter out of her mouth in this series, really. That's real, because I'm tired for you. When are you going to get tired of seeking perfection? Because obviously you're doing it the wrong way and you're still not happy. And Molly has to think about that. And basically, Andrew calls her and things kind of work out. And that's where the episode kind of ends. But that's real. And that's what the Buddhists say. Happiness is contentment. And for a lot of people, especially women, especially black women, contentment is not enough. I have to be happy. A 92 climber is the worst of all. It has to be perfect. It has to be happy instead of say, hey, I'm good, I'm content, things are working well, I'm just going to build on that. But I'm not going to quite end it there yet. There's also another component that's going to actually start playing out. Something Cousin T-Taw actually talked about. I probably have to go back and explore it more about the Queen's Court and the Queen Bee status. Everybody know that Tiffany's the Queen Bee, and everything descends down from there. And Molly's always been second in command as far as the Queen's Court, but she's never had to come up against a rival. And Tiffany has cleverly kept those two camps divided. Now, in her other camp, her crazy crew, the Natural 92 side, Candola has probably been like her second in command or somewhere in there. Now, when you introduce two different hives, so to speak, and you introduce another bee, second in command, that rivals the established second in command, what happens? That is the tension that we're seeing between Molly and Condola. And I think that's really going to play out. That tension between Molly and Condola is actually really going to come front and center, because Condola is causing Issa to change. And which side is Issa going to choose? Is she going to choose to go with her mentor, which is Candola, or her buddy, which is Molly? Very interesting dynamic, very interesting perspective, something to actually look forward to. The thing is that while I don't particularly like Insecure as a comedy, but I do like the dynamics of the characters and how they play out and how they really play out in real life. And it's an interesting illustration to actually show these characters, show these dynamics, and show how this stuff possibly does play out in real life. It really does. And I've had women talk to me talking about Insecure. I've had women actually join my crew, become subs of mine because of my Insecure analysis, because they did see themselves and their relationships in this particular show. When Cousin T-Taw, if you're listening, jump in, bruh, because you're the expert on the Queen's Court, the Queen Bee Court, and the Hive. And just a question, if you're listening, what happens when a number two from the outside of the hive, or from a different part of the hive, rivals the number two that's already established? Fascinating how it's going to work out. And see, does what they see compared to what you see play out in the real world? Anyway, folks, that's all I got for this one. This is BGS out, and I will see you guys on